tell you about is a few more words on the Patterson film. The Patterson-Gimlin film, you all know about it, and it's 30 years old now. And a tremendous amount of work has been done on this film trying to determine its authenticity.
Please support this channel by subscribing and leaving comments.
We all know that October 20th, I think, is Patterson's anniversary of the film, and we have selected a list of 10 people that we think should belong in the Hall of Fame for Bigfoot. Thank you all for voting, all of those that decided votes. And I have another special too. Tom Slick, one of the members on our top 10 list. This is the anniversary of his death, the 35th anniversary. And I've written this for the next newsletter. Texas oil man dies in plane crash. Tom Slick, Texas oil man and adventurer, died suddenly on October 6, 1962, after his Beechcraft airplane apparently disintegrated 40 miles south of Dillon, Montana. This being the 35th anniversary of the incident, I thought Tom should be remembered briefly in the track record for his many achievements in the cryptozoological field. Besides others, Tom Slick worked closely with the Western Bigfoot Society associate Peter Byrne, and they found Yeti tracks in 1957 near the Iswakola area of Nepal. He kept Peter busy. In 1958, frogs were used as lures. Peter's had some interesting stories about those. In 1959, Yeti tracks were again found near the Baroun area, and Pine-Boucher hand was investigated. Did a little bit more than investigated. Peter tells the tale of brakes failing on a mountain bus, both he and Tom jumping to safety. Tom hurt his ankle though and has never returned to Nepal after going home from that incident. In the States, after the Crowe, Jerry died incidentally December 2nd, 1993 in Cicada, at his brother's house, reported tracks from Bluff Creek, California in 1958. By November 1959, Tom was interested in the American Bigfoot and formed the Pacific Northwest Expedition. Peter and his brother Brian were summoned from a snow cave in Nepal, where they had been subsisting on yak butter and cheese. Bunch of good stories out of that field. Tom had problems with others he had placed in the field in California, and Peter was put in charge of the new expedition. In 1960 alone, 4 sets of Bigfoot tracks were found. In October 1962, the Pacific Northwest Expedition died, along with its benefactor, Thomas Baker Swift Jr., as a Beechcraft plane crashed in the Montana soil. It might be noted that the famous singer Buddy Holly was also in the Beechcraft when he died. They say that if you fly at a high rate of speed, they have a tendency to fall apart. Although there's some other theories that are in that are really substantiated. One was that lightning had struck the plane, but they were never able to, there were no storms in the area. Another one was that there was a bomb aboard, but there was nothing conclusive proof about that either. Tom was born in Clarion, Pennsylvania, May 6, 1916, and the rest of it is just family history stuff that we married, but his children are.
Camp out overnight?
Larry, were you going to talk, or did you
No,
take everything?
Peter's going to do both of our parts, so it's like I
You can do mine, too.
had to pay him a bunch of bucks.
Oh, you're our main speaker.
Oh, my.
For that, yes, I'm Peter Byrne. I'm sure everybody knows who he is. Has some inconsistencies in the Patterson film he wants to talk about. He's even brought a camera along. I want to get a still picture of that camera.
Okay. Better.
All right.
And we will speak up just a little bit, won't we, Peter?
Yes.
Thank you.
You want my check?
Oh, please. I always want to check. Anybody check, for that matter.
Paul Freeman is the main speaker tonight, so I'll be brief. I won't speak very long. What I want to tell you about is a few more words on the Patterson film. The Patterson-Gimlin film, you all know about it, and it's 30 years old now, and a tremendous amount of work has been done on this film trying to determine its authenticity. And people have examined it back and forth and talked to all the witnesses and talked to Patterson and talked to Gimlin, and most of us are fairly convinced that it's real. But what is of interest to me is that after all this time, including the study that we did during my last project, the 5-year project which came to an end on the 30th of April, we commissioned a group in Champaign, Illinois to do a study. And when we'd finished with them, when the project came to an end, we had paid them with some auxiliary costs, $100,000. It's still not finished. It's an intense study, and that study is moving towards authentication of the film. The people who are doing it think that what they see in the film is a real living creature. So what chance have we lay people got to sort of contribute to this? It's very interesting that 2 lay people, in other words, Larry and myself, have both made separate discoveries about the film just by looking at it over and over and over. One of the discoveries is mine, and the other goes to Larry. You sure it's not mine, Larry?
No, one per customer here.
Oh, give it to him, Larry.
My discovery is this. You all know the film. The creature appears on the screen, on the left-hand side of the screen, and it starts to walk across the screen. It reaches what we call frame 352. It turns around like this, looks at the cameraman, and then it walks away. I was looking at this one day, and I've seen it 100 times, 200 times, I don't know how many times, and I noticed something very, very interesting. When it begins its walk from the left, supposing this is the camera here and this is Patterson right here, it begins its walk. It takes 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and it stops. And no one's ever noticed this before. It stops, it looks directly ahead like this, and you could count 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 1 second, and then it moves on again. Speculation, why did it stop? It does stop, we can see this very clearly. And I showed it to various people. I called Rene de Hinden in Canada, who has a copy of the film. He said, no, it doesn't stop. You know, Rene, no, it doesn't stop. He looked at it, he called me back and says, it does stop. My God. What it may have been doing, this is pure speculation, is it may have been, being a real living creature, being a Bigfoot, it may have been trying to make up its mind what to do. And it was watching the 2 men in its peripheral vision. You could see them quite clearly, I'm sure. You could hear them, you could see what was going on. And then it went on with its walk. So this is my discovery, my claim.
That's Peter.
The next discovery is Larry, looking at the film for the 500th time, watching it over and over and over. He saw something very, very interesting, which is that there are some frames missing in the film. It's a little bit further on, and he suddenly noticed that it seems to dip down. I think there's a bank. And suddenly, from here, it's gone, and it appears here. It doesn't go under this bank, it just disappears. So what happened is the camera was turned off. I managed to get a copy of the camera. This is the K100 camera. This is the camera, not the one that Patterson used, but this is the model that he has. It's called the K100. And what we surmise is that Patterson, if you remember what happened, he ran, he tripped, he went down on one knee. He was running the camera like this. When he tripped, his thumb came off and it stopped. And this, we think, is what happened. We have to go back and look at it again, because today I met with a man who is a film producer, and we had lunch together. We talked about this. He said, you can tell if the camera stopped, because these cameras, when you start them again immediately, the first frame overexposes, and you get a thing called a flash. So Larry's going to look at the film, and so am I, to make sure the camera did stop. But it's very, very interesting. After all these years and all these studies by experts at enormous cost, Larry discovers this just by looking at it.
At no cost, by the way.
No cost. If anyone would like to look at this camera, I can pass it around.
About what frame was that start?
This comes when she's first walking away, and you see her.
About what frame number?
Oh, geez, I couldn't tell you right off the bat. It's in the 100.
Around 100?
When she gets moving away from you right away, you'll see the white trees, 3 in a row. And off to the very right-hand side, you'll see a bright red bush, where the leaves have already turned bright red. These bushes are way to the right. Then Roger gets by the sandbar. It kind of rises in front of him. She gets smaller. And then all of a sudden, there's a little bit of a blob there goes, and boom, she's clear on the left. She's already past that bush, It's on her left-hand side, and she's twice her size, which means he's had time to step forward a bit. She's larger in the frame. He did not change the turn on the camera, you know that. You can tell that. So, what has happened is his fingers come off that spring, off that button. It has to be on the spring.
It's a very awkward camera.
Yeah, very awkward. If you hold this camera, you'll see that it's heavy and it's awkward.
The trigger is here, up here.
Very
You
difficult.
have to hold it like this with your finger back here. So if you tripped, it's highly possible that you would do that. When you do that, the camera stops.
Yeah.
That's it.
Be very.
Any questions?
Yes, I got one. If he tripped, how could the next frame be exactly on it again?
You can see him. No, it's moving there. That whole thing right there, when it comes back on, it's moving still. But then she's closer. She's right there in front of you, you know, the larger size.
You mean he tripped and he could still
Yes.
stay on it?
Yes,
Yeah,
because the lens
he
was
tripped
wide
and
enough.
came up. Yeah.
Peter, the lens, the picture, the frame, and the lens was wide enough. It wasn't a telescopic lens like beaming right in. It was wide enough to pick her up here and here and here. So,
It comes back just before 352. It's sticking out there. You can see that she's past the red bushes, and she's by that stick that's in the ground that she steps on, or steps right by. Renee has that stick. It's 18 inches long. That's how we got her height. It was through computers with that stick. Well, just after that bush is when she starts turning. She gets on the other side.
This couldn't be edited,
No,
spliced?
no,
Okay,
no. It was all
had
examined.
to ask.
It was all examined back then, and it's pure. So the only thing that could have happened was that the film just stopped at that moment, started again, because it was all checked back then. Universal had it, Disney had it. You know, it's just no.
This isn't a normal camera, is it?
it's a normal camera for that.
For then it was, yeah.
Yeah, they made hundreds of these. Kodak did.
This is an 8mm?
16
Oh, 60.
millimeter.
If you run this at 24 frames, you can do sound on them. If it was run at 24, but there's, of course, there's a big argument. A lot of people say, no, and Krantz is one of them, says, no, it was run at 18 frames per second. That camera does not shoot at 18 frames per second. There is no setting for 18 frames per second on that camera. Never has been, never will be. So we know that it has to either be 16 or 24, and we know it's not 16 because that's way too slow.
You finished, Larry?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, go home, get out your copies of the 1967 film, and look at it over and over and over. There's another discovery to be made, I'm sure of it. Thank you.
Sure.
If you're enjoying all this rare and unique content, please show your support by subscribing and leaving comments.